They say the truth will set you free, but for the Groveland Four, the truth was buried under lies, fear, and the rotten weight of Jim Crow justice. It was 1949 in Florida, a summer so hot that the air clung to your skin like sweat and shame. And in the middle of Lake County's orange groves, four young black men were about to be dragged into a nightmare they couldn't escape. Their names were Walter Irvin, Samuel Shepard, Charles Greenlee, and Ernest Thomas. Four names they tried to erase, but today we speak them loud. Now, this is what they call the Groveland Four, but if you look at the picture, you'll probably notice there's only three people in it. That's because one of them, Ernest Thomas, never made it to a courtroom. He never even made it to the police station. And that's because he was hunted down like an animal in the woods and shot over 400 times before his story ever had a chance to be heard. But before we even get into that part, let me tell you the story of how they got there. Charles Greenlee was just 16 years old, still a baby. He wasn't even involved. He was just nearby, waiting on a ride. That's it. Wrong place, wrong color, wrong time. Walter Irvin and Samuel Shepard were both 22. They were military veterans who had just come back from fighting overseas, men in uniform. But in Florida, that uniform didn't mean a damn thing. And Ernest Thomas, he knew how the South moved when a white woman pointed her finger at a black man. So when he heard they were looking for suspects, he ran. And for that, they hunted him down in the woods and shot him over 400 times. You don't shoot somebody 400 times to arrest them. You do that to make a statement. Now, here's the part that makes your blood boil even more. These boys weren't even a group. They didn't roll together like that. In fact, we don't even know if they knew each other. But once Norma Paget, a white woman, told police she had been raped after her car broke down, nobody cared about the facts. Nobody looked for evidence. There were no witnesses, no fingerprints, no physical evidence, no investigation. Just a white woman's word and four black boys to blame. Later on, medical examiners even said that there was no sign Norma had been raped at all. But that didn't matter. The story had already hit the papers. The mob was already forming. Even the FBI had files showing the case was weak. But our good friend, J. Edgar Hoover, didn't do anything. Now, if you know your history, you know we've talked about Hoover before, a man rumored to be part black himself. Spent his whole career targeting black leaders. He hated us so badly, you'd swear he was trying to erase himself. But I digress. The bottom line, these boys were picked because they were black, nearby, and available. Nothing more. And imagine how their parents felt, knowing your child is innocent, knowing your baby boy didn't do anything, and still, you gotta watch the law snatch them up, beat them, threaten them, kill them, and there's nothing you can do about it. Now, let's talk about what happened. Greenlee, the youngest, was sentenced to life in prison. Irvin and Shepard were sentenced to death. But then, in stepped Thurgood Marshall and the NAACP. And let me pause right there, because I went to Thurgood Marshall School, and they taught us about the Brown v. Board of Education. But this case, they never mentioned it. But they should have. Because the drama in this story, the heartbreak, the injustice, the twist, it should have been a movie. Matter of fact, it was a movie, but it didn't get the spotlight it deserved. Thurgood Marshall got the case all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they threw the conviction out. They said it was unfair, and they ordered a new trial. Sounds like justice, right? Nah, not in Lake County, Florida. Before the retrial could happen, Sheriff Willis McCall went to pick up Irvin and Shepard from prison. But instead of taking them to court, he pulled over on a dark country road and said they tried to escape. Then he pulled out his gun and shot them both. Samuel Shepard died right there in the dirt. Walter Irvin, he survived. And when reporters showed up, Irvin told the truth. That sheriff tried to kill us. And what did they do? They put them on trial again. And they convicted him again. The governor later commuted his sentence to life in prison. Charles Greenlee eventually got out after over a decade behind bars. Walter Irvin got out 10 years later too. But them scars never left. And Ernest Thomas, he never got his day in court. He died alone, under a tree, gunned down like prey. Now here's one more name you need to know. Harry T. Moore. He was a civil rights leader in Florida who dared to call this case what it was, an execution of justice. But not long after he started speaking out, his house was bombed. He and his wife were murdered on Christmas night. That was the price of truth in America. Fast forward to 2019, and the state of Florida finally said, "We're sorry," and they issued pardons. Then, in 2021, a judge officially exonerated all four men. But ask yourself, what is a pardon to a grieving mother? What is an exoneration when your child is in the ground? Same story, different decade. Just like George Stinney Jr., who was sentenced to death at 14 with no evidence. And this is why we don't trust the system. This is why we say just us. Because the justice system wasn't ever built for us. Justice is supposed to be blind. But when it comes to black folks, she peeks through that blindfold every single time. They don't mind showing you slavery. They'll put chains and plantations on the big screen every year. But they don't want to show you this. They don't want to show you how the law was weaponized, how innocence didn't matter, how the truth got buried, and how 4 boys became sacrifices for white rage. And just when you think the story couldn't get any more disgusting, Norma Paget, the woman who started it all, had the nerve to show up decades later at the pardon hearing. Still lying, still asking them not to be pardoned, still playing the victim. Now let me remind you, there was never any evidence that a crime ever even occurred. They even examined her clothes. No semen, no DNA, no injuries, nothing. But she held on to that lie for over 70 years. Even after the beatings, the bullets, the death sentences, the ruined lives, she refused to tell the truth. That ain't just hate, that's evil. And it proves exactly why we gotta tell our stories ourselves. Because if we leave it up to folks like her, they'll lie to your face, smile for the camera, and let you burn twice. But we gonna tell it. Because if we don't, they'll act like it never happened. We're not letting their names fade. We're not letting their pain be forgotten. We're not letting the Groveland 4 be a footnote. Their story matters because this isn't just history. It's the blueprint for how the system still moves today. And if we don't know our past, we'll keep walking into the same trap. Not this time. Not ever. Remember to comment, like, share, and subscribe for more stories they don't put in your textbook. Peace.